Today on RPG Horror Stories, we have a paid D&D game that goes absolutely wrong when a crossover between two D&D parties results in some weird semi-PvP and co-op battling. Without further ado, let's get started. Hi there, both a newcomer to Reddit and D&D as a whole. I've been playing a homebrew for 6 months and only started Adventurers League about a month ago, so forgive my inexperience. Anyways, this story has to do with the homebrew that was also, unfortunately, my first proper D&D experience. So, some context about the people involved. There is the DM and 3 friends who were also new to the game. One of them was already friends with DM prior to this, and was the one who got me and 2 other friends to try out the game. We agreed to try it out and got started with reading up 5th edition stuff, creating characters, and writing character unique backstories with the DM helping us. After our character creation, a brief intro to the game and world we will be playing in, which lasted about 4 to 5 hours, the DM drops the ball on us. He tells us that he will be charging us $7 per subsequent 4 to 5 hour sessions, and that he will use the money to get more D&D related materials for the game like new books, props, and the like. Now, as total newbies to the game, and hearing about the local AL costing $10 per session from another friend, we thought that this was an okay deal, so we agreed to set up a date for the next real gameplay session. Yes, I know that the DM forgot to run a session 0. We did remedy that eventually. So our party of a variant human druid, me, a halfling knowledge cleric, a drow ranger, and a dragonborn bard played in a homebrew world where a disease that was once slowly taking over the populace got quarantined but had a sudden re-emergence. Our party backstory was that we were put together and hired to hunt down a group of characters who were suspected of causing this resurgence. We somehow all die in the chase and get resurrected by an unknown god, in return for having our souls hostage and being bound to each other by an ethereal chain. The god also told us that to get our souls back and break the chain, we must help him find and kill a particular character, who I later found out is another PC from another group our DM also DMs for. But whatever, it will be a while before this part is relevant anyway. We played the campaign, learn a lot of things about 5th edition along the way, screw up a bit on ability score increase, spells, and some encounters, just general newbie D&D things. Honestly, we had a lot of fun the first few sessions, monetary cost aside, but as the campaign got further and further in, certain problems started to pop up. Since we never had a session 0, none of us ever really got our opinions about things like boundaries and preferred playstyles out. I, for example, loved the roleplay elements, while some of us, the bard and ranger, preferred combat. So we would have some sessions where it was majority combat or roleplay, and some of us would just leave a little disgruntled at the end. It all came to a head when we hit a session where we were tasked with trying to ally with a young green dragon, and while we found the dragon, the DM proceeded to wipe our party of level 4 characters, only for us to wake back up in a PvP situation. We tried everything to trick the dragon, but to no avail, and we were ultimately forced to fight each other's characters to the death. Let's say we don't talk about that session much in conversation anymore. My poor moon druid may have won because of sheer number of hit points, but no one left that session happier than before. Maybe it's just my opinion, but I don't think forcing a bunch of D&D newbies into PvP was a good idea. No, that's not just your opinion, that is just common sense. Anyway, either way, we let bygones be bygones and moved on. I should mention that at some point our bard managed to help us negotiate the session price down to $4, which was real nice in our wallets, but still relevant later. Anyways, we carry on, hear about an upcoming war against the forces allied with the group we were chasing, prepare and make alliances. Yes, I know it's kind of stupid how a bunch of level 5s to 7s managed to get alliances with a whole city, but anyway. the DM tells us about this double session we are going to have with the other player character group where we fight against each other. I had my misgivings, but since the rest of my party, which was also added another PC, a variant human hexblade warlock, they were hyped for it, so I thought I would just go along with it. We eventually reached the final city that the DM told us would be the final stage for the war. Dawdle about, help with a cultist problem, who nearly summoned Tiamat, and other stuff like that. I will mention that at this point, I, the cleric, and the bard were invited by the DM to play as guest characters for the other group, so we had time to see what they were like. Now, this group has apparently been playing for a little over a year with the DM, and they were his friends/classmates. My group, save for the bard, were essentially strangers to the DM before this campaign. This was also when I noticed that the character our party was supposed to hunt down and kill was a player character and how their player-DM dynamic functioned. Long story short, the other group was probably still only alive because of 1. DM bias, and 2. manipulation. They would constantly play the friend card, challenge and argue the DM's homebrew skills, monsters, and or become passive aggressive. They even recorded their sessions just to fact check the DM and his mistakes, which is probably how they ended up having 6 resurrection scrolls at level 6 and 7. Eventually the time for the double session arrives, and my entire party is level 7. But the DM makes the last minute decision to change from group PvP to a big tiered co-op mission, which bums out most of us, our bard especially, who was really looking forward to the PvP. We get over it and the other group shows up, all at level 9 with 2 ability scores at 20 and spell save DCs in the 19 and 21s. What the heck? I must mention that because of our actions so far, we gained some perks and some debuffs to help out/hinder in the big mission. My group got stuff like summoning wolf-riding goblin units, a young green dragon, and a 6d12 artillery strike. Pretty cool, right? Then we saw what the other group had. A free hero's feast, a guaranteed safe long rest between the scouting missions and the BBEG fight, the same goblin rider summoned, and an aura that lowers all enemy AC by 2 and instantly cuts their HP by 30. Oh, did I also mention that there are also now 2 sets of assassins coming after my party who can appear at any time, even during a long rest? Just icing on the cake, I guess. It's at this realization that our bard lets us in on a secret that the DM and one of the other group PCs told him not to tell us, that they have been playing the homebrew campaign for free the whole time, and the DM's girlfriend's D&D group have also been playing for free as well, which is why I'm here now. It's a little event heavy, but I really needed to get this out of my head. I still really love D&D. I love my dear Moon Druid, and I love all the ways the game has allowed me to express my creativity. I do plan to confront the DM about all this eventually, but I just have to ask, was it right/okay for the DM to keep such a thing secret from us? And even though we were charged session fees, we somehow ended up with some unsatisfactory sessions, lower leveled with okayish perks and a horrible debuff. Is this wrong, or am I just petty? I'll answer all those questions during the analysis, but before that, we have a part 2. So, here we go. So, we had 2 quests to split amongst the 2 parties. Clearly, the other higher leveled, they were level 9 and we were level 7, the other one was not thrilled that we had to work with a less advanced party because they would be too busy saving us from monsters. Therefore, they decided in advance that they would go on the wave combat quest while we did the infiltration quest, which we were admittedly far more suited for. But the comments did rub us the wrong way. Anyway, the quest happens and my group does very well in what we were tasked to do. We remained totally unseen while nabbing some very critical intel of the defenses of the city and whatnot. The other group, though, while they succeeded eventually, let's just say that they cut it really close to failure one too many times, and that my group were the only ones left with diamonds for Revivify. Afterwards, we all move on to the siege quest, where we all would do a wave combat to hold off the enemy while the army breaches the city's defenses. Now, while my group were the newer players except for our warlock, who has been playing for 2 years, at this stage we were more than familiar with our characters, how our features and spells work, and how well some of our actions synchronize with each other. Siege starts. Initiative gets rolled. We roll very well, but the other group doesn't. They make snide comments about us min-maxing, but whatever. The waves of monsters arrive, and all of us do fairly well. Clerics become spirit blenders. Our warlock and ranger easily single out and take down the grappling beasts before they can hold too many of us down. I do my standard conjure animals and wild shape into the great constrictor snake to give us a numbers advantage. Their druid tried to do something similar, and that's where things go wrong. You see, their druid is a Circle of the Land subclass. She claims that now that she's seen my snake, she would cast Call Lightning and Wild Shape into the snake. Anyone who's played a druid or read the player's handbook could tell you why this is wrong. I then tell her that first, she cannot do that wild shape because it's too high a CR for her subclass, and second, her wild shape is an action, not a bonus action like for a moon druid. She shrugs off my first comment initially, but then challenges my second point, saying that she's done the same thing multiple times in their games, so why can't she do it now? She then tells the DM that she should be allowed to do it because she wanted to, just as a CR1 beast instead. Our Warlock's player helps me argue my point, and the DM actually agrees with us. The other Druid player grumbles some more about us being rules lawyers and just settles for casting Call Lightning, which she then used on an enemy I was grappling, despite there being 2 more enemies not within allies' range. Naturally, because of this, the already near dead creature dies while I take an unnecessary 17 lightning damage because of the proximity. In the next few rounds, my party members take more unnecessary damage as the druid rains lightning within 5 feet of us and the sorcerer accidentally blasts us with fireball. Thrice, justifyingly with some BS excuse about getting rid of the greatest numbers of enemies fastest. The waves kept coming. My group is still holding up very well despite our lower levels and the BS, while the other party has to borrow one of our clerics' Revivify slots and diamond. Then the boss monster arrives, a downscaled lich and a devil of some sort, along with a final large wave of enemies. The other party laughs out loud and the paladin remarks that we are probably going to fall over the moment the boss monsters get their turn. First round, our ranger attacks the lich, natural 20 and crits. Extra attack, nat 20 again. Lich is already nearly dead. Warlock slaps the lich twice with his hexblade and kills it. My turn. I swarm the devil with conjure animals and constrict/restrain it. Our cleric spirit guardians upcasted guiding bolt, and devil is on his last legs. Bard/warlock finishes the devil off. DM is a little bummed, shocked, but ultimately amused that we shut down his boss monster so quickly. The rest of the siege forces are just cleanup. I get knocked down thanks to that other druid's lightning, but hey, whatever. The session ends and the other group begins back talking on the shared group chat made for this co-op mission, accusing us of cheating, min-maxing, being not fun to play with, and that the DM was biased because my group paid the session fees and they didn't. Naturally, arguments ensue because they were the ones being uncooperative and rude the whole time. Eventually, they begrudgingly apologize and promise to be more cooperative for the last fight session. Honestly, I don't trust a single word they said. Not when some of them jokingly said that maybe we should all just have a massive PvP at the end of the war mission. I'm still going to see this through to the end because I want to continue the story, and so we and even the DM won't ever have to deal with the other group again. So that's where it all is now, I guess. Alright, so here we go, and this is something I said during my Q&A, which I linked in the card somewhere, but if you're not having fun in a paid D&D session, I recommend every time that you should either talk to the DM or just straight up leave. life is short and D&D is long, and now with a paid D&D session, not only are you wasting your time, but you're also wasting your money. Never a good thing. So yes, if you're not having fun with the games, either talk to the DM about it or just leave. You're paying for this experience, and if you're not having fun, it's not worth it. Now, the group versus group co-op quest with no co-op, that was interesting. I definitely think that when you're going into D&D with a competitive mindset, that is usually a bad thing. In fact, I'd say that almost 100% of the time that is a bad thing. D&D is usually, 99% of the time, a cooperative experience. You are working together to tell a story, and if you go into it with a competitive mindset that you need to beat other people somehow, that's definitely not going to work. It is not the way D&D, at least in my opinion, should be played. You should be working together to tell this story. This is definitely a weird situation. There's some kind of supremacy complex going on here, and accusing the DM of favoritism is interesting. I definitely think that the OP should talk to the DM about both the way the other group behaved and the way the DM treats their own group, and talk about why they need to pay for these sessions, because it doesn't seem very necessary, especially since, look, as far as the OP has conveyed, the DM isn't using the money to do much. The OP didn't tell me about some cool production thing or something that the DM is using the money for. It just feels like they're pocketing it. I probably am wrong about that, but I just can't see it being worth it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this story, and that is where we are going to wrap it up for today. If you guys enjoyed this episode of RPG Horror Stories and want to let me know, then please do hit that like button. If you want to see more episodes of RPG Horror Stories as well as my other series, then please do hit that subscribe button. And finally, if you want to leave your own thoughts or stories, then go down to the comments down below. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.